The sun had just begun to peek over the horizon when a low, guttural rumble from heavy machinery jolted the walls of my home. At first, I thought it was a dream, the relentless clatter of grinding metal and beeping trucks seeping into my groggy mind like a dark warning. With a tired groan, I dragged myself out of bed, rubbing sleep from my eyes as I stumbled to the window. My coffee mug was halfway to my lips when I froze. My driveway, my pristine, freshly sealed, painstakingly maintained driveway, was gone. In its place sprawled a newly paved road slicing through my property, leading to absolutely nowhere. For a moment, I stood there, dumbfounded, staring at the wreckage outside. Then fury surged through me. I slammed the mug down, ignoring the hot coffee that splashed onto my hand, and stormed outside in my slippers. A group of construction workers in bright orange vests loitered near a steamroller, chatting casually as if they hadn't just demolished my personal property. The sharp stench of fresh asphalt stung my nose as I marched toward the closest worker, a wiry guy with a scruffy goatee, scribbling on a clipboard. "Hey, what the hell is going on here?" My voice sliced through the morning stillness like a blade. The guy barely glanced up. "HOA orders, sir," he muttered, flipping through his papers. "We're extending the road for better traffic flow." My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. This isn't a public road. This was my driveway. He finally met my eyes, unbothered. "Well, it's a road now." Blood roared in my ears. "Who approved this? Who gave you permission to rip up my property?" He shrugged. "That's an HOA question. We just follow the work order." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Yelling at the crew was pointless. They were just pawns. The real culprits were the HOA, the homeowners association that had been a thorn in everyone's side for years. They were infamous for their petty tyranny, once fining a neighbor $500 because his Christmas lights lingered past January 3rd. But this was a new level of insanity. I turned on my heel and headed straight for the person behind it all, Margaret Hensley, the HOA president. Margaret had ruled the neighborhood like a queen for as long as anyone could remember. She was the kind of woman who probably kept a manual on how to torment people, peering out her window with binoculars, waiting to pounce on the smallest infraction. If anyone had orchestrated this madness, it was her. The short walk to her house only stoked my anger. When I reached her door, I jabbed the doorbell hard enough to make it echo. Moments later, she opened it, her fake smile plastered on as always, perfectly polished, never touching her eyes. She wore a crisp navy blazer, a silver brooch pinned neatly to her lapel. Everything about her screamed control, but I wasn't buying it. "Oh, Mr. Carter, what a pleasant surprise," she cooed, her voice thick with artificial warmth. "Cut the crap, Margaret," I snapped. Why did I wake up to a construction crew paving over my driveway? Her smile didn't budge. "Oh, dear, you must have missed the email. The board voted to extend the community road for better accessibility." I narrowed my eyes. "I never got an email." Her expression stayed eerily serene. "It went out last month. Maybe it's in your spam folder." She was lying. I never missed an HOA email, no matter how absurd. But even if I had, it didn't justify this. "You can't do this," I said, folding my arms. "That was private property." Her lips twitched into a smug grin. "Actually, we can. Per the HOA bylaws, the board can alter shared infrastructure for the community's benefit." I snorted. "Shared infrastructure? That was my driveway, Margaret. It wasn't communal." She waved a hand dismissively. "It was an outdated layout. The new road will improve connectivity. You'll see the value in time." I stared at her, incredulous. The audacity, the total disregard for my rights, it was maddening. "Margaret, you don't know who you're messing with," I said, my voice low and steady. "I'm a zoning commissioner." For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed her face, but she quickly masked it with a laugh. "The board approved it, James. There's nothing you can do." I smirked. "We'll see about that." Without another word, I walked away, leaving her in her doorway. Game on. Back home, I dove into my zoning files. Years as a commissioner had taught me property law inside and out, and I knew one thing: HOAs weren't above it. I found the clause I needed. Private driveways were protected under personal property easement rights. The HOA had no legal power to touch mine without my consent. Better yet, their road extension violated county zoning codes. They hadn't just overstepped, They'd broken the law. A grin spread across my face as I started drafting a formal complaint. This wasn't just about my driveway anymore. It was about justice. The HOA had bullied people too long. By the time I was done, I had a watertight case, packed with legal citations and precedents. The next meeting was going to be a reckoning. I spent the day preparing. The HOA had gotten away with too much, assuming I'd roll over like everyone else. They didn't realize I knew the law better than they did. I wasn't going to beg or plead. I was going to dismantle them legally and publicly. That night, I printed every relevant regulation and code proving their overreach. The stack of papers alone would intimidate anyone. But I wasn't stopping there. The HOA thrived on secrecy. Most homeowners didn't fight back because they didn't know they could. That was my edge. I'd make sure everyone saw what Margaret and her cronies were really up to. The next HOA meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a tacky space with floral centerpieces that looked like relics from a 90s wedding. Fluorescent lights hummed as residents filed in, murmuring about petty gripes. I sat near the front, my folder in plain view. Margaret, already at the board's table, shot me a tight smile. She knew why I was there. The meeting droned on, landscaping budgets, debates over street sign colors, until I raised my hand. I've got a concern about a recent HOA decision, I said, my voice cutting through the room. Heads turned. Margaret's smile stiffened. Of course, Mr. Carter. What's on your mind? Her tone was syrupy, a blatant power play. I stood, holding my folder. The unauthorized destruction of my private driveway. Whispers spread. Margaret jumped in smoothly. As I've said, the board voted to extend the road for the community's benefit. I opened my folder and pulled out a document. Except, per county zoning laws, that's illegal. Private driveways are protected under easement rights. You had no authority to touch mine. The room went quiet. A few homeowners exchanged looks. Margaret's smile held, but her fingers gripped her papers tighter. Our bylaws allow improvements to shared infrastructure, she said with a forced chuckle. I pulled out another sheet. Wrong. Your bylaws don't override county law. And I couldn't find any vote record for this expansion. It wasn't even approved properly. The board squirmed. A man in the back spoke up. Wait, we didn't vote on this. I turned to the crowd. No, you didn't. And it gets worse. The county could fine the HOA thousands for this, or make them rip up the road and fix my driveway, all at their expense. The room buzzed. Margaret's composure slipped, her face paling. I pressed on. This isn't new. How many of you have been fined for nonsense? How many felt forced to comply with rules that aren't even legal? Nods rippled through the crowd. A woman in front said, they fined me $200 for unapproved flower pots. A guy added, they threatened to lean over my mailbox being 2 inches too tall. The meeting turned. People weren't just listening, they were mad. Margaret tried to regain control. I assure you, everything we do is for the community. I shook my head. No, it's for a few people who make up rules as they go. But not anymore. I pulled out my final paper. I filed a complaint with the county. There'll be an investigation into this and other shady practices. If they're guilty, the HOA could face legal action. Margaret's mask cracked. You can't just report us. I raised an eyebrow. I can. And I did. Silence. Then a guy chuckled. Well, damn. Chaos erupted. People demanded answers, called for a board overhaul. Margaret tried to shout over them, but it was over. The homeowners weren't scared anymore. They were furious. The next morning, I woke up triumphant. The meeting had sparked a revolt, and Margaret's iron grip was slipping. I'd done more than challenge her. I'd woken something in the neighborhood. People were fed up with her reign, but I knew she'd retaliate. Sure enough, a red notice was taped to my door, citing my overgrown lawn, an unapproved bird feeder, and non-compliant blinds. I laughed. She thought I'd cave. Instead, I turned it into ammo. The lawn? County ordinances protected grass species. HOA had no say. The feeder? State law backed me. The blinds? Their color rule wasn't even filed with the county. I drafted a rebuttal, mailed it to the board, and emailed it to every homeowner. By lunch, neighbors were texting, some laughing, others asking for help with their own fines. Word spread fast. That afternoon, people showed up at my house. My neighbor Tom, a gruff ex-Marine, knocked first, waving my email. Kid, you've started a damn uprising, he said with a grin. More followed. We sat in my living room, trading HOA horror stories, a $200 fine for a tacky gnome, a lean threat over a car parked an inch offline. The more we talked, the angrier we got. Then it hit me. We don't have to take this, I said. We can fight. Challenge the fines. Replace the board. Tom smirked. How? I leaned forward. If enough of us resist, they can't enforce it all. And the board's elected, we can vote them out. Susan, a quiet woman, clapped. He's right. We've let them bully us too long. Greg nodded. We'd need numbers. Tom laughed. Oh, they'll join when they see how much cash the HOA's bled from them. It was decided. We'd gather signatures, rally support, expose the HOA. I'd already filed with the county. Now we'd show everyone the truth. The next day, I printed flyers listing the HOA's sins, the illegal road, bogus fines, financial waste, and a call to demand change. I handed them out all day, taping some to poles. By night, Margaret showed up, furious, her fake smile gone. You're causing panic, she hissed. The HOA keeps order, not troublemakers like you. I crossed my arms. The homeowners disagree. They're done with your rules. Her eyes blazed. You'll regret this, James. The fines will stick, the road stays, and you'll lose. I smiled. We'll see. She stormed off, slamming my gate. My phone buzzed, an email from the county. My complaint was filed, and an investigation had begun. The first blow had landed. The neighborhood split fast, not her way, but ours. People spoke up, shared stories, rallied. Margaret's desperate moves, like another petty notice about my mailbox, only dug her deeper. I added it to my county file. When the zoning inspector came, measuring my property and grilling the HOA's lack of permits, Margaret tried charm. A misunderstanding, she chirped. He shut her down. It's not about benefits, it's about legality. No permits, no dice. She faltered. That night's emergency meeting was packed. Half the neighborhood showed, fed up. Margaret's smooth talk crumbled as people demanded answers. A board member broke ranks. Maybe it's time for new leadership. The crowd agreed. Calls for an election rang out. Margaret snapped. This is your fault, James. I smiled. No, it's yours. She stormed out, powerless. The petition flew. Signatures piled up, and the election was set. Margaret's scare tactics, emails about chaos, flopped. The vote ousted her and her cronies. I got dragged onto the new board, reluctantly. Margaret raged, then listed her house for sale. We undid her mess. Fines dropped, rules relaxed, my driveway restored. The county fined the HOA, ordered repairs, and later uncovered years of fund mismanagement. Homeowners got cash back. At Tom's barbecue, we celebrated laughter, music, freedom. Margaret's for sale sign stood as a trophy. Tom nudged me. What's next, zoning guy? I grinned. A quiet life, I hope. He laughed. Good luck with that. The war was won, and the neighborhood was ours again. Best driveway ever.